Hi, and welcome to what we hope is the third and last in a series of videos about applying security fixes for Jenkins plugins. Along with me, I have Mark Waite. Mark, how are you doing?
Great, Darren. Thanks.
So we thought at the end of one we were done. We thought at the end of two we were done, and here we are yet again at three.
We've got
But this time we really think we're done.
Yes.
Now, in between the end of two and now, there were some other fixes that had to be done. We thought we were done at the end of two. And security took a look at it and said,
They said, hey, we found this problem. The thing you did is still vulnerable to a cross-site scripting attack in this way. And I was astonished because we'd written tests. We'd interactively tested ourselves. We'd made sure that it was behaving exactly the way we expected. But thankfully, the security team is better at security than we are. And they found a problem. And the problem was real. And so we had to do some more coding. We had to write some more code to defend against that condition they found. And we had to write some more automated tests to be sure that we tested against that condition they found. And they've now reviewed the results of our changes and said, yes, that looks good. So we think we're ready to take the next step.
And they gave us the direction in taking that next step.
They did. They told us, hey, here's where you need to go, read these pages, and follow the instructions that are on these pages.
So let's recap it quickly a little bit. So a few weeks ago, we received an email, scary email, like, hey, we found something.
Right.
And here's the issue about it. That's in a private Jira repository or Jira space, whatever you want to call it. And then we got a private GitHub repository that we were supposed to work in. And we went back and forth with them quite a few times. Now they have blessed it and said, yep, you're good to go, at least as far as we can tell, right? And for security people watching this, I apologize for saying it that way. But hey, things will happen in the future too, right? Mm-hmm. We keep on finding new things. But now they said, okay, at this point, we can't find anything else. Now you're good to go. And this is where it gets a little more interesting because we're actually not releasing the plugin. We're staging the plugin for release by the security team. Is that the correct way to say it?
That's the correct way to say it, and it's an important distinction, right? We want a coordinated delivery of the fixed plugin and the advisory that announces the problem, because it's really bad if we announce the problem and don't deliver the fix at the same time. We owe it to our users that when we publish an advisory for something that's been fixed, we need to be sure that the plugin is available at that time. But we don't want the plugin with the fix published prematurely because then we risk disclosing without the benefit of the advisory.
So let's go ahead and share your screen and let's go through these steps.
Right. So the staging procedure, typically done a few days before the advisory is published. The idea is let's give the security team to get everything ready so that they can publish the advisory and publish the releases of any plugins that are being referenced in the advisory. Then the next step is we actually merge the fix into a branch. Now, they use a different technique here as a way to defend users from unexpected changes in security fixes. So what they ask is, please create a branch based on the previous release. Now, most of the times, changes have been arriving since the previous release and have not yet been released. Dependency updates, minor fixes, documentation tweaks, all sorts of things like that. And they're intentional. They don't want to jeopardize the user by having a security fix include anything more than the preceding release plus exactly the security changes. And so that's what we've done. Darren and I did the initial development as a series of commits that described what we were doing and how we were learning. We ended with 10 or 12 commits. I've now squashed those into a single commit. And that single commit uses the message as they recommend. It's just the security identifier because any further details may be ultimately wrong in describing some future state. I shouldn't, for instance, in that commit message, say when it will be released, because I don't know. I shouldn't say details of the problem, because it doesn't help. The details will be described in the advisory. So what we see is, here is the preceding release, this 554.va4, etc. And here is a single commit stacked on top of it that is, as the commit message, security-2788. So we've done the steps to merge the fix. Now, Darren said he's okay that I didn't mention him as the additional author. Thanks for your patience on that, Darren.
Sure.
So now the next step then is we need to stage this release with Maven. Maven is used to perform plugin releases because it lets us use Maven to tag the repository, to push the changes, etc. Usually, those changes, when Maven does a release, would be pushed to the original upstream repository, the public repository. But in this case, we aren't ready to push to public. We want it just to go to the security repository so that the security team can decide when it should become visible elsewhere. Two ways to do it. Either for plugins with manual releases, like the Git plugin, the Git client plugin, or our plugin, which uses automated releases. We use Jenkins Enhancement Proposal 229, continuous delivery. So what we need to do is we're going to follow this step here to build and deploy the release. And we need one piece of information. It's this repo name. So Darren, help me to be sure that I don't hit enter on this thing, right?
Yes, we will measure this one 3 times.
Right, so. Exactly. So here we go. I'm going to put okay, good. So it didn't hit enter.
Yep.
Now, repo name, I need to go gather from the email message I received from the security team.
Okay, so I'm going to not share that for the moment while you were looking for that. Because
well, and I've got to do some searching here for just a minute.
Oh, okay. So while Mark is searching for that, there are a lot of different pieces that have gone together to put this in place. Now, although we are building and deploying, what you'll see once we actually get to this point is that the deploy is not to the public site. We've said that a few times, but again, we were talking about staging for release. We're staging for, let's clarify that, for public release. It is being released, but not to an area that is actually public. And Mark, you're muted if you're still going. Okay. One more minute. Okay, good. So, are you ready?
I think I am. So
okay.
I've captured.
So let's share your screen.
Great.
Here we go.
All right. So I went to the email that we received from the security team, and the staging repository, or the staging location name that they gave us on repo.jenkinsci.org is security2788-staging. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run this command. And so what's happening here? Okay, the set.
Are we in the right branch?
Oh, well, it's a good question. Let's check that. So git branch. Okay, I'm on a branch named that way. Let's look at the log file that leads up to it. Here's that change. And now let's take one more safety check. Let's do a git diff.
Yep.
To compare our current tip to the last release. So we've got a change that alters the git ignore file. We've got documentation about this. We haven't inserted this here, and we won't do that actually until after the advisory is published.
Yeah, which is fine.
It is,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no harm there for now. This won't be a good link. I'm okay with that because I want it to be accurately pointing to the advisory, and we don't know what the advisory will be until it's published.
Chicken and egg.
Right. And because this plugin uses documentation as code, when we make that update, 6 or 8 hours after making that update to the documentation, it will be published on the plugins.jenkins.io site with the correct hyperlink.
Okay.
So this looks good to me. It has the changes in it that I was expecting to find. And yeah, good. Thought I saw a spelling error.
Okay.
Yes, good.
So this looks good.
It does. It really does look good. So clear. And now that command that I hid away. All right, so Maven, and this is some magic for incrementals and to set the version number. And then this is the thing that says don't publish to the usual repository. Instead, publish to this staging repository that the security team will use. And if a user were to look for that staging repository, they would see that it's not visible to them, right? Others won't see this. This is limited just to Darren, to me, and to select members of the security team.
Right. So before we run this, go back over to the docs. Let's make sure there isn't anything else magical there.
Oh, yes. Very good. Okay. Let's see. So use repo name as a placeholder. So there. Never a GitHub URL. That's right. We didn't. Repo name in this case is not a URL. It's just a simple string. Okay. Be sure you enter this correctly because you could deploy to the regular repository if you make a mistake. So let's double check. Alt deployment repository equals maven.jenkins-ci.org default. This looks good to me.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
So let's push the button and see what happens.
Yeah. Now well, actually, I've got one more thing that I want to do, Darren.
All right.
Because I haven't actually built this yet. And because I just did the merge. So let's do that for now.
Yep. That's a good idea.
And
that should probably be put as their step 0.
Well, and I don't know because this deploy step will do a build. It's just I'd rather
see it
confirm for myself that I've done the build
right
before asking to do the deploy. So this will take a few minutes actually. Oh, interesting. Wait a second. Java minus version
17.
That was a good catch. I'm
that
glad we did the build.
Bad thing to happen.
Well, and it actually wouldn't have been as bad as you might think because even with Java 17, it will generate Java 8 bytecode.
That's true.
But I don't want that.
Yeah.
I actually want to use Java 11. So when I say Java minus version now, it's 11.0.15. And when I say Maven minus version, it will tell me, 3.8.4. No, that is not what I want. Okay.
So this gets even better because this would be a wise step 0 for them. It's like verify your Java version, verify your Maven version, verify all the things.
Right, and it's unhealthy that I didn't verify this before. Right, I should have checked these all before because I want my environment doing those things anyway. So Maven minus version. Whoops. Yeah. Okay. So now we're running Maven 3.8.6. This is the version that the Jenkins infrastructure is using. So I'm comfortable that lots of people are using it and know it's working well. This Eclipse Adoptium version is exactly the version that the Jenkins infrastructure is using. So again, that's a good thing.
And by saying that, that's at the time of recording, which happens to be some date that we're not going to disclose.
Right. So, you're absolutely correct. That is as of right now. And the next time the Java people release a new Java version, Jenkins will update to that new Java version. And that happens roughly every quarter.
Right.
All right. So let's do that.
Which, if you're paying attention, you can look in Mark's lower right-hand corner and find out what today is. Unless I've covered it up, one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. The date is not terribly secret, right? There we go. So let's do the build.
Okay. So this will take a few moments or not.
Hang on just a minute. I am still a little surprised at that message.
Well,
The bytecode version that we're doing is correct. So
Right.
so the warning is not. I'm not going to let that bug me because it may mean that this Jackson dependency knows something about Java 17. But okay, let's Java minus version just to be sure. Yes. So
That's fine.
let's do it again. Now we could safety check to see how previous versions were built, if they had been built with Java 8, but I'm pretty sure these were built with Java 11. So we're going to go ahead.
That's fine. It's just a warning.
Right. I really like to be sure that did in fact the tests pass with this latest set of changes. It was a squash of multiple commits into a single commit. Looking at them, they should be exactly the same as the set of commits before. However, even with all that, far better to be conservative here. Check that, yes, the tests are passing. They don't take that long to run, so let's let them go.
Yeah, because I'd rather just know
Right.
before I get into that cycle. Because, okay, what if I know that this works, then if the other thing fails, I know it wasn't this. Correct.
Right. That's the other comfort point is, oh, hey, by running this now, I know that tests are passing. I know that check style is satisfied. I know that spot bugs is satisfied. All the things that really we like for a good, healthy release. Okay.
Yep. So this is fair, right? So our confidence level was probably 90%, probably higher than that, but now it's 99.9%.
That's the idea here, right?
Yep.
Is we really would like to be very confident that this thing is going to succeed. Let's clear the screen.
Okay.
Clear. Maven. Okay, here we go. So I think we're ready.
Okay. Let's let it run.
All right.
So we're going to see the same thing that we just saw.
We should, right.
Plus.
Because it should compile, run all the tests, and then after it's been successful running the tests and running the static analysis checks, it should then tell us that it's deployed a version to that specially named repo on repo.jenkins, that specially named subdirectory on repo.jenkinsci.org.
So how's it authing on that push? I guess based on your...
Correct. So that's a very good question. How does Maven know what credentials to provide to grant permissions to write to the repository that hosts all this? Mm-hmm. And the answer is in my settings.xml file or one of the related files in my .m2 directory, there is an encoded copy of my password that Maven can use to authenticate to the remote repository server.
Okay. So you had that, but then they had to associate your credential to that directory in order for us to drop into 2788. Okay.
Exactly. And so we see it here.
Yep.
Here it is, security staging, and there it published 555 VA, etc. And now if we do a git log, we should see this A0D5, I think, as the tip of the commits. Yep, there it is.
There it is. Yep.
So we've published. Now we need to inform the security team, and they will then publish the advisory. And once the advisory is published, we'll then need to come back and merge all these changes into the origin repository, the one that's publicly visible, and put them onto the master branch.
So there appears to be another step, though, right below the fold, where it says create the tag.
Oh, interesting. Yes. So let's do that.
So is that now?
I think that is. Yes.
Right?
Well, we should be able to see if a tag was created. I would have expected this to have already created a tag, but let's look and see. So git tag. There is no 555. So, and we see nothing here. So you're right, Darren. I'm glad you looked below the fold. Well done.
Okay.
we need to do this command.
Okay.
And I'm a bash user, so this should work just fine for me.
All right. Is there anything special in the paragraph? So it's been learned shell. Since the release was staged, be careful not to merge. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Right. Now, before we run that, let's go ahead and scroll down and take a look at that last section, push commits and tags. So after uploading, push the tags to the private. So we'll need to push the tag up.
Correct.
You've already pushed the commit, obviously.
I did push the commit, although this obviously hints I didn't necessarily have to push the commit, but I did push the commit. Yes.
Right. And then not to the public, which we know you were insert, which we'll verify before we do it. Okay. So let's go do that tag.
Yep.
And then let's do the final thing.
So the tag command was this. So it says, all right, evaluate this expression.
Oh, okay.
And here we go.
All right. Okay.
And now if we do a git log, we should see there's the tag.
Tag. Great.
Now, as it said, we need to push that. So let's push the tags, and I think that's the syntax for it. There we go.
Okay. Yes.
So now if we were to look at our security repository that they had provided for us, we would see this tag is now visible.
Yeah, because we can see where it was going, just the one line above where you're highlighted.
Correct.
We can see that we're going to Jenkins CI cert, test and G plugin.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if we look, this was a result of our being conservative here and saying we're going to only use one repository in this directory.
Correct.
So that we didn't risk pushing to public.
Okay. Let's go back to the docs one last time. Let's trust and verify. So we got commits and tags are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Documentation, we know don't mess with it, and that's it.
Right. Well, and on this keep documentation private, because this plugin uses documentation as code, the documentation for the security fix won't be published until this change is merged to the master branch in that repository. So after the advisory is published, Darren and I will merge this into the master branch, and then 6 or 8 hours later, it will be visible on plugins.jenkins.io.
Okay. So that's it. Really quick and easy, right? You get an email, you get an issue, you get a private repository, you make a couple of changes, and you're done in 5 minutes. No.
Well,
you're
maybe
not. Not 5 minutes. Over this time, now, obviously, we've slowed down a lot to explain how this was working. Mark, if you had to guess, how much time have you put in on this? Now, in total transparency, Mark has done a lot of this on his own without me being around. We have worked together some, but then he's also... So you've put in a lot more than I have.
I'd guess we're at 4 to 6 hours on this. We might be even more than that. And that's not uncommon, right? Even for... This is a relatively simple fix, and even a relatively simple fix. Now, larger fixes, more significant fixes, you should plan to spend much more time than that.
So if you receive an email from the security team, don't ignore it.
Yes, that's...
Actually, let me rephrase that. Please don't ignore it.
Right.
They won't come knocking on your door, but just don't ignore it.
Well, and they if you ignore it, they will probably then send you a message eventually saying, hey, we are now obligated to disclose this, and we'll disclose it as your plugin does not have a fix for this. And therefore, your plugin will now get a little annotation on it and a visible warning to users that there is a known security vulnerability in this plugin. We would much prefer to fix plugin problems rather than disclose them unfixed.
Correct. So with that, we think we're done. We hope we're really done. And if we are, good. You won't see us again about this particular item. But in case there is a number 4, we'll be here to talk about it. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and do that. Click on the subscribe button, ring the bell. You'll get notified anytime there's new content available. And that way you can keep up with content like this about where you're trying to figure out, okay, maybe you just stumbled across this and you aren't a plugin developer, but you're interested in how the process works. Well, between these 3 videos, hopefully no more, you see what the process is and how the Jenkins community works in trying to keep everything as secure as possible.